Welcome to the deep dive. We dig through the sources, the reports, the articles, and pull out those crucial bits of insight, sometimes contradictory, that tell the real story. And today, our mission, well, it started with what looked like a literary event, but quickly became a fascinating case study in, let's say, unintentional political messaging. We're looking at the recent launch for Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's new book, The Metamer Government. It's the sequel to his first book, Metamer. Now, we were looking for insights into the ruling party's updated philosophy, this vision of national synergy. But what the sources showed us was, well, something else entirely. The whole event got completely hijacked by talk of someone who wasn't even there. Okay, let's unpack this. You launch a book about coming together, it's about the future, and the party basically spends half the time talking about someone else.
That's exactly the pivot point here. This wasn't just, a standard book signing. It was political theater, pure and simple, designed to showcase the PM's vision, his party's strength. But what the speakers actually did focus on, their chosen targets, their anxieties, it gives you a really clear window into the political climate right now. The banner might have said Metamer, but the subtext screamed, we're really worried about this other guy.
Right, so let's set the stage a bit more. For listeners maybe not tracking Ethiopian politics daily, what exactly is Metamer supposed to be?
So Metamer is Abiy Ahmed's signature political idea. It translates roughly to synergy or coming together. It's his philosophical basis for trying to unify the country, moving away from the older ethnic federalist model. It's presented as this grand unifying vision, something to cement his legacy, not just as a politician, but as a thinker. And the sequel, The Metamer Government, is meant to show that this idea, the synergy, is now actually driving policy. It's supposed to be the proof it works.
Okay, so high-minded ideals, national unity, and then the microphones go live, and the conversation immediately veers away from synergy and straight into, well, political attack mode.
Oh, it wasn't subtle. The sources are pretty clear on this. The launch event basically morphed into this long critique, almost like a roast, aimed squarely at Jawar Mohammed.
Jawar Mohammed, the prominent Oromo activist, politician, currently detained and definitely not on the guest list for this government event.
Exactly. And his absence makes the whole thing even louder, politically speaking. You've got Abiy pushing for centralization, national unity under his Metamer banner. And Jawar represents a very powerful Oromo nationalist perspective, often critical of that very centralizing push. So when you dedicate your big policy launch event to attacking him, you're essentially telling everyone he's the main obstacle to your unity project. It's strategically baffling, frankly. A huge own goal.
Yeah, it's like a complete breakdown in message control. The picture the sources paint is of a ruling party so fixated on its rival, they ended up amplifying his importance. They basically gave him free publicity by obsessing over him at their own event. Okay, let's get into some specifics from the event, because the language used is really revealing, not just about the Jawar focus, but also about a kind of deafness to the impact of actual policies, starting with Getachew Reda, the former government spokesman.
Right, Reda. He was one of the key figures there, supposed to be championing the book, elevating the PM's philosophy. That was his job.
But instead, he kicks off with what the sources called a pretty pointed jab. Seems clearly aimed at someone specific, probably Jawar, who's in his early 40s. Reda said, and I'm quoting here, "We live in a country where people at the age of 40 write their autobiography. I'm glad the PM didn't write about himself."
And this is where, the irony just hits you. Reda's trying to paint Abiy as selfless, above writing about himself at a young age, implying Jawar is the self-promoter.
Well.
But Abiy Ahmed has now written 2 books detailing his own political philosophy, his leadership style, his vision for the country.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? If you write 2 whole books about your governing philosophy and how you see things, how is that not writing about yourself? It's a very fine line they're trying to walk.
It is. It's trying to frame Metamer as this objective, almost scientific theory of governance, not just Abiy's ideas. But that's a hard sell when the author himself is the head of state, detailing his government's approach. It creates this weird tension right from the get-go.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, or maybe just really awkward. Reda then pivots from this philosophical shade-throwing to defending a hugely controversial policy, the mass demolitions in Addis Ababa. We're talking about clearing homes for parks, skyscrapers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and this needs context. These aren't just like routine urban upgrades. We're talking about mass displacement, huge arguments over land rights, and it all gets tangled up with ethnic tensions about who belongs in the capital. For the people losing their homes, it's devastating. It's their security, their community gone.
And that's the reality on the ground. That's the human cost. Reda's defense, though, well, it tried to frame it very differently. Here's the direct quote. If a nostalgic bar where I first tasted draft beer is gone to clean up the city, it is not a bad thing. He equates losing a bar he remembers fondly with people losing their homes. The scale seems just
Completely off. It's a really telling rhetorical move, isn't it? It shows this massive gap between the experiences of the political elite and ordinary citizens. He's defending a policy causing immense hardship by dismissing the criticism as just, misplaced sentimentality over an old pub. His nostalgia versus their lost homes, it's quite something. And think about the political fallout of a statement like that. It plays right into the hands of critics who say the government cares more about flashy projects, the parks, the towers, than about basic needs like housing for its people. It confirms that narrative.
And it didn't stop there. Even Abiy himself, when he spoke, apparently couldn't help but throw some subtle digs towards Jawar. So the focus stayed locked on the rival, not the book. The sources really described the atmosphere as less like a serious book launch and more like a diss track listening party, just tearing down the opponent who couldn't even be there to respond.
And strategically, what does that do? When you pour so much energy, so much of your official platform time into attacking a rival, you're basically underlining their importance. You make them the central character in the drama. The source put it quite well, suggesting that by spending half the event on Jawar, the government effectively announced to everyone that Jawar is the one keeping Abiy up at night. They did more to validate his political weight than he could have done himself from detention.
So what does this all mean? When you boil it down, the main takeaway from the sources wasn't about the content of the Myanmar government. The real story was the ruling party's apparent insecurity, made public by their obsessive focus on their main opponent.
Exactly. It was a big official event meant to promote Abiy's vision, but its main achievement was showcasing their anxieties about the opposition. It showed that Jawar, even while locked away, is still setting the agenda in some ways, dictating the terms of the political conversation.
So for you, trying to make sense of these complex dynamics in Ethiopia, the key thing here is the disconnect. The intended message, Abiy's evolving philosophy of synergy, got completely lost. What came through loud and clear was the unintentional message. Jawar Mohammed remains incredibly relevant, perhaps even central to the government's thinking. They use their own platform to attack him, not really to sell their book.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you to consider. When a leader uses a major platform like this, a book launch meant to cement their own legacy but spends most of the oxygen attacking a rival, are they actually strengthening their own position and promoting their ideas? Or are they, maybe unintentionally, doing more to launch the opposition's next campaign? The sources here really suggest a major strategic fumble, where the government ended up making the opposition the main story, all without the opposition needing to say a word or even show up. It raises fundamental questions about where political focus should lie.
It's like throwing a huge party for yourself, but accidentally spending the whole night advertising the restaurant next door. Politics is strange. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the strange world of political messaging and misdirection. We'll catch you next time.